Rafael, so we thank you for being first out. I'm having this series for 10 days as a part of my book launch in March 1st, and I've set up conversations with women and men about love and relationships, and you are first out. And I also learned that for a lot of people, you are one of those who actually work with it, so it's natural for you. But there's actually a lot of people that feel uncomfortable, and really there is a discomfort to speak about these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things that in most of our societies we don't really talk about or learn how to navigate. And so it's very uncomfortable for all of us. So even those of us who have been at it for years and doing stuff, it's still uncomfortable. It's still uncomfortable for me. And I've been at this for about 10 and a half, 11 years at this point.
Yeah, that's good to know. And it's good to know and to be in this space together with you. But I have a whole bunch of questions.
I love it. All right.
So I'm going to start with something like, how did we meet each other, Rafael?
Well, wow, I think it's been, 5, 7 years, something like that. And I remember that part of what happened was, I think you were in the coaching program or you were going through something where you put out the word out there. I was living in Italy at the time, and you put out the word out there that you wanted people to come out and help you teach some of these courses and put this stuff out there. And by that point, I'd already been coaching and working with this for a couple of years. And so I said, okay, let's go check it out. It's one of the things that we say, I heard the call.
Oh, you heard the call.
Right. It's like somebody puts something out there or the world puts an invitation out there. And there's a way where I can feel it, that it's the next right thing for me to do. And the only reason I mentioned this is because it's one of the major tools in men-women relating.
And this is such a great question, because is that a male thing to hear a woman call and being there? Or is this something that women do as well?
Well, I think my experience has been this. It's something that we both do. And it's a particularly strong in male-women dynamics, especially in relationships, especially when it comes to attraction. There's a particular way in which women will put out a particular call in a way where most men are not used to hearing it. I think we kind of get a sense that something's going on, the term, she caught my eye. There. And what in reality means is she put out a call and you heard it. And you can actually cultivate that particular skill and hear a whole range and levels of calls. So everything from hey, I'm very attracted to you, to the world and the feminine itself in the world calling out and saying, go to this place or do this next right thing. So I think there's a whole range of stuff in there.
Oh, I love it. I love it, because this is so great. And because I think this is what happens in relationships and also between men and women, is that they don't, they see signals, but they don't act upon them, and they hesitate, or they try to analyze it or try to figure it out. And actually, just today, I just sitting next to women having conversation, and I heard them talk about relationships and analyzing a man that are appearing in their life. And I was like, this is really interesting.
And it's funny because sometimes, and this is one of the things that most guys don't believe, sometimes as a guy, you'll be sitting there and you'll think about a woman and you'll think, oh, should I text her? And then you start second guessing yourself. And what actually happens is that moment when you're thinking, should I text her, is because she's out there sending the call that she wants you to text her. And it starts to get into that metaphysical kind of magical spot where most guys are like, no, I'm making stuff up. And so we think we're making stuff up and we second guess ourselves, and then we don't do it. And then later on we find out that, she was thinking, she'll say I was thinking about you on Tuesday and I was thinking about reaching out. And that happens to be the day that you were thinking about reaching out to her. But what in actuality is happening is she's sending out a call that you're actually hearing.
this is really wonderful. We can go so really deep into this, and at the same way, I wanted to. I really want to pick your brain because I think a lot of questions I'm going to ask now, women usually never ask men, or they don't know about it. So, what is great about being a man?
There's a lot of stuff that's great about being a man. Nothing against women and the feminine, but I happen to love being a man and showing up in this world. There's particular roles that we get to fulfill, which are, in my opinion, beautiful to hold, very complementary to what women do and to the feminine. And it's just nourishing. It's like there's a particular way, like when you're fully out as a man, you can hold the structure well. You know, like you can hold the rules and the ideas and the whatever structures are needed to get a thing accomplished. And when you hold it in a particularly clean and responsive way, that's one of the keys. Because I think a lot of guys, you know, like we'll come up with a plan, or she'll say, this is what I want. And we say, great, here's the plan for it. And then things change and we get stuck on it. You know, like it has to be a responsive structure, so that usually what happens is we're holding the structure, like, you know, like, and let's take a basic example. Like she says, for Valentine's Day, I want to do this. I want to go to the restaurant, and then I want to go to a movie, and then I want to come home and have a romantic thing, right? Like she'll say that and we're like, awesome, I know what to do. You call the restaurant, you set the whole thing up, you find out the movie, you find out the tickets, and then you set up the house in such a way so that when you come home, things are fine, right? But then what happens is this. Leading up to the day, you get a thought in your head as a guy. It's like, there's something happening. It's like, should I double check the reservations at the restaurant? Or like, what about that other restaurant, right? You get like this little thought, like a little voice in the back of your head that tells you to do something, to double check a thing, or to like kind of set something up or make a thing in place. And we don't listen to it. We tend to second guess it. But then what happens is we get to the day, and then as you're driving over to the restaurant, she says, you know, I don't know about this restaurant anymore. I was thinking maybe Chinese food would be better. And Chinese food was one of the options that you had been thinking about earlier in the week. Well, the interesting thing is, like, what actually happened is you, as a man holding the structure, actually heard the feminine say there might be a change of plans. But because we've never been educated into listening to those things so that we can get curious and find out more, we ignore it, we second guess it, we dismiss it because we think I'm making that up. And so that is actually being holding the masculine from a responsive place, so that when you hear that voice, your first thought is to reach out to her or to make a second reservation in that other place. And then it starts to look like magic because you're doing all this stuff. And she's like, oh my God, how did you know? It's like, well, I felt something and I was willing to respond to that. And so that, to me, is just one of the more amazing things that as a man, once you begin to develop a lot of these skills, you can start to do. And then your relationship with your partner becomes that much more dynamic, more exciting, and more fulfilling.
I love this. And what you're actually speaking to is the importance of women knowing their desire, knowing what they want. Being able to communicate it in a clear way, and maybe, I don't know, I'm going to pick some women's brain as well, but I think there is something really important there about actually women being clear on their desires. Yeah,
and it's a skill, you know. It's just like for a man, it's a skill to learn to hear that voice that says do this and do that. It's also one of the things that needs practice, like. The majority of women in our society, and in most of our societies, don't really get the opportunity to learn how to fully feel and express their desire, right? And those are two very important parts of the process. The first one is really being willing to feel it. You know, like there's a lot of stuff that goes around with women and their desire. Like there's always this idea, this dynamic where a woman expresses a desire, and then a man takes that to mean that he's got permission to like do a bunch of stuff, and he really doesn't. You know, like a woman might look at a guy and smile on the street, and most guys immediately go to like, oh, she wants to have sex with me. Or, oh, she smiled at me, maybe I can get sex. And then they get really like pushy, right? And so most women have learned to instead tone it down and hide their desire. So a woman might notice a man she's attracted to, but she'll immediately look away because she can't trust that he'll be able to hold that desire, that if she expresses anything, she'll get overwhelmed with attention there. And so and that's just one of the challenges that women face. And so it's a very important and difficult thing to begin as a woman, to learn how to feel your desire. You know, what is it? What does it feel like? Where is it leading me? Because sometimes it'll lead you places that you weren't expecting to. And then from there, express it. You know, like those two steps are some of the most difficult ones that any woman gets to learn and practice. And then on the other side, the guy is learning how to listen and how to feel her desire and everything. So it's a very intense and not often taught dynamics.
Yeah.
It's often difficult.
This is really advanced skills in a way, and I'm curious: do you think this is the desire for all men, to be able to really listen to a woman and be
Most
there?
men that I know.
Well, yeah. Maybe we talk often about, you know, the healthy masculine and the healthy feminine, or being unhealthy. So it's also something about what it means as a man to heal yourself and do your own inner work in a way as well as for women.
Yeah, it definitely requires a lot of that for a man. It's like I've had to go through a lot of being brutally honest with myself. You know, like being honest and being responsible. Like I did a video about a week or so ago where I just got honest with the fact that like there are days when I'm having a hard time, I've had my feelings hurt, or I'm feeling lonely. And those are the days where I have to be extra responsible for myself, because I'm more likely to be walking down the street and staring at women more, or trying to get their attention subtly, or standing a little too close, right? Like those are the ways in which a lot of men try to get a little extra from women in a very subtle way. And they try to hide it under the radar, which we actually can't, right? Most women can tell when we're trying to kind of sneak a little bit extra in there. But one of the things of the personal development of a man is being willing to be honest. That is like, oh, I'm feeling lonely today, so I have to be more careful not to try to sneak in extra stuff from women. Yeah. You know, that level of honesty about myself is what then makes it possible for me to have healthy relating with women. You know, and there's a whole plethora.
I love that. So there is something about when you're feeling alone or feeling sad or feeling there might be a tendency that you actually like take advantage of women as an object much more, and maybe this is kind of becomes some kind of male pattern, and that's why a lot of women feel objectified by men.
Yeah. And it's interesting because what the actual solution, what the actual result is that if I am willing to be honest about what's happening with me, then I can actually parent myself. Meaning that if I'm feeling lonely, I can very specifically reach for things that nourish me there. So like I could decide, it's like, oh wow, I'm feeling really lonely, I'm gonna call 3 of my guy friends and we're gonna go watch a movie or go to the bar and have some drinks. Or maybe I'll flirt with that woman that I'm really attracted to, right? But I'm consciously taking the steps to nourish that part of myself. So instead of it coming out sideways and being sneaky, I'm very purposefully parenting myself and getting the nutrients that I need, so that it's not weird. But it requires a level of honesty and a level of vulnerability, because most guys, we don't like to admit that there's something going on, that there's something that we're feeling vulnerable about, and then that I have to take certain steps about it, you know?
Beautiful. Like, is there something in particular when men gather together in groups or having male friends? What is that about, really? Like, yeah, there is something about male
There
thing.
is, yeah. There definitely is. I gotta tell you, I always recommend to all of my clients, and I do this for myself as well. I have a group of men that I am brutally honest with. So, wow. Okay. So I'll just be very honest here.
Yeah.
So, if I'm going through a hard time, I might text my friends and this group of men and say, "Hey, I'm having a hard time. I'm feeling lonely. I'm feeling upset, or maybe I'm worried about money, or a thing happened today that has really affected me a lot." Right? Like I'm feeling really sad or really angry, and then I might say, "And I'm tempted right now to go spend extra money, to go drinking, or to watch porn and masturbate and check out," like some form, like there's a level of honesty that if I'm willing to have it there, then I have a group of men that are, I've specifically picked this group of men because they're my friends and they're willing to hear me in that moment and say, "Great, do you need anything? How can we support you so that you don't spin out into this behavior and instead face whatever's actually happening?"
Wow. And this is how men check out or being overwhelmed. And when that happens in isolation, or it might be drinking or watching porn or doing other things, but it's actually checking out.
Yeah, there's some form of spinning out, and it's different for everybody. I mean, like traditionally for most men, it's this is the kind of stuff, but it might also be things like eating. Like sometimes it's like there have been days where if I have a really hard day, I can feel that moment where I'm like, oh, I am very tempted to just sit in front of the TV and watch a marathon of my favorite show and just drink beers and eat pizza.
Yeah, that's how women eat ice cream.
Right. And here's the thing, it's like it's a fine line between like I'll have some ice cream to feel a little better versus I'm going to have a ton of ice cream to numb out what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. Because when numb out what's happening, that's actually a lot of times both women and men are doing it totally unconsciously and not being aware of it either.
Because and this is one of the things that is so important, and one of the things that a lot of men that I know don't know how to do, which is that if you're willing to, instead of numbing out, if you're willing to, you can go to your friends and be brutally honest about what you're feeling, and just expressing what you're feeling takes off a load of the pressure off. So whatever the difficulty is, like, if you're having a hard time at work and you think you're going to get fired, just by expressing that to your friends, you can actually begin to see what the next right step is. So it might be that you need to talk to your boss. It might be that you need to talk to your coworker. It might be that you need to find another job.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to say when you're under all that pressure. It's really hard to see. But the moment you share it with other people, with your friends, with a group of people that you specifically set up an agreement to be brutally honest with, the moment you express yourself fully, most of that pressure goes away. And most of the pressure to check out and do compensatory behavior gets lifted. Now the weight is a lot more bearable.
Yeah. Wow. And female friends, what to say about female friends? What do they provide in a man's life? And I mean, a lot of relationships, if you're having a man, women become jealous of his female friends. So what's there actually?
Well, that's interesting, right? The first thing, I just want to say something real quick about jealousy with female friends. A lot of the times what's happening is that there's the man and there's the woman, and then there's the relationship, the third between them, right?
Yeah.
So when a man has a female friend, part of what every man needs to be aware of and be careful with is that relating affecting the third between him and his partner? usually that's where the jealousy comes. Like in my opinion, and from what I've seen, usually that's where the jealousy begins. Like if you and I are in a relationship, right? There's me, there's you, and then there's the third between us. But what happens is if I have a female friend where I'm having a certain kind of intimacy there that's affecting what you and I have, that third between us, you will feel it. And you will feel that there's something happening there. And more often than not, it just needs some clarification, right? But we don't have the emotional intelligence to be able to discern what it is. It might be that I am actually relying on a particularly intimate, emotional way with this other person, but which may not be a danger to our relationship. But if I have shame around it, you will feel some kind of shame and a thing being off in this other relating, and then you will put your story on top of it as to why it is. And so there's a way where like men may have a connection with someone else, and they haven't been willing to look at the impact that it has on their relationship. It doesn't necessarily mean that you automatically have to end this, but you have to be honest about what is happening and then have that conversation with your partner so that this becomes clear. And sometimes it really is that this other relating that we're having is actually affecting and impacting in a way that isn't appropriate. And most guys don't like admitting that. You know? Yeah. So I would say that that's the first part of it. The second part is like, if you can have a clean relating with another woman outside of your relationship, or with any women, where you can have resonant relating, you know, like some women you're attracted to and the resonant thing is to pursue something. And some women, the resonant thing is just to have a friendship and a connection. If you're willing to have the resonant relating in all of these places, most men gain the benefit of getting some very real feedback if they're willing to listen. Most men are not. One of the big dynamics that most women have to deal with is that they always weigh the cost of telling a man the truth. And that's one of the hardest thing for most men to hear. You know, most men just think like, you can just tell me. But then once you actually begin to look at, as a man, the impact that you have on women, when you get honest and real about that, you will often find that we as men have very defensive, we tend to get defensive when we get feedback. And so to most women don't want to tell us the truth about the things that we're doing or that they see we're going through, because it's an investment on their part. They're now investing on who we are, and it's too costly for most women to tell us the truth. Like most men get resentful, they withdraw. Some men get angry. In worst case scenarios, some men get violent. And so women generally have to be very careful about that. So one of the things that you can do as a man is like, if you're willing to be honest there, you can get an amazing, amazing benefit in your life by being grateful and supporting women and telling you the truth.
Yeah. And I'm thinking when we're talking about feedback and being honest, is also so much of your ability to communicate in a way so your partner actually can hear it. And I think there's a whole bunch there also around communicating so your partner actually can listen and hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, that's all part of emotional intelligence, right? We don't. Most of our societies don't teach us how to do that. Don't teach us how to communicate in such a way where we're responsible for ourselves and we're still giving the information of either what we need, you know, what our boundaries are, or what we see in a way where it can be heard. Most of us tend to have some form of like, I saw something, I was unwilling to say it, and then the emotions built up over time, and by the time I say it, the communication comes with a backlog of emotions.
Yeah.
And then it's just a mess.
Because you just spilled it.
Yeah.
We could actually have a conversation very long time, Rafael, and I want to keep it to about 30 minutes. And I have one important question I really want want to ask you, and that is, what is it that makes a woman great to you? Like, what do you as a man appreciate in a woman and makes her great?
I would say that the thing that I most appreciate, or to me, what makes a woman great is when she's willing to feel and be in dynamic, open, vulnerable feeling with the world. You know, it's what some people call being turned on. You know, it's like when you're on purpose and when you have a good day, or when you're in the right dynamic with the world. There's a way where women feel open and vulnerable, while at the same time, and that open and vulnerability actually has them come out and feel powerful and clear and driven. And there's just something about, and I don't know why it is the way it is, but there's just something about the man-women dynamic that, as a man, anytime I connect with a woman who's feeling that way, it feels amazing. I feel nourished, and I do just about anything in my power to support her in maintaining being that way in the world. Like, literally, a woman's power is in her ability to surrender to that state of being. And the more she does it, the more beautiful she looks, the more she glows, the better the sex is with her. And any connection that I have with her just feels amazing to me and nourishes me. It's a very selfish act to support a woman in being that, but it's just gold all around, you know?
Yeah. And I guess that goes for the same is that makes also a woman sexy, her capacity to be vulnerable.
Yeah, because the more she is willing to feel, the more I can feel. You know, we have this limbic system that allows us to feel each other's emotions and sensations. So you can actually get to the point where whatever you are feeling as we have sex, I get to feel. And then whatever I feel, you get to feel. And so it becomes a cycle of just feeling really good stuff. And it's just, that's some of the best sex right there.
Yeah. So, women, you hear, vulnerability is the key in to a man. Thank you so much, Rafael.